United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Monica Duran,
Here.
Zachary Urban,
Present.
Christy Davis,
Here.
Janice Hoppy,
Present.
Tim Fitzgerald,
Here.
George Pond,
Still present.
Larry Matthews,
Here.
and Madam Mayor, Councilmember Wooden has advised me that she would be absent tonight and also for the study session next week. And that said, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the minutes of May 23rd or study session notes of May 16?
Yes.
Ms. Hoppy, you have something?
Yes, I'd like to add to the study notes of May 16th, 2016, that there is a consensus that Councilmember Hoppy received of 7-1 to move Mr. Urban's design to staff for review of feasibility.
I've been told of that error and I will make that change. Thank you. Sorry.
Thanks. Councilmember, any other changes or different? Then the balance of the minutes stand approved as presented. All right, I'm going to read a proclamation. Ms. Manwaring, are you going to accept it? This is in regard to Parks and Recreation Month, which is July 2016. Whereas parks and recreation are important to maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community. And whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy and active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease. And whereas parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community and contribute to the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas our parks and national recreation areas ensure the beauty of our community, provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. Now, therefore, I, Joyce J., Mayor, and the Council of Wheat Ridge, do hereby declare July 2016 as Parks and Recreation Month in the city of Wheat Ridge. And I have Ms. Manwaring here. You want to say something?
I would like to say something. As part of our celebration of July as Parks and Recreation Month, we've created a top 20 countdown to summer playlist. And so inside this little brochure, we have a listing of all our parks in the city of Wheat Ridge, as well as 20 fun activities to do in each park. And on the back, a map of the parks. So these will be available for pickup beginning July 1 at our facilities, which include the outdoor pool, the Active Adult Center, and the Recreation Center. And we'll have some here at City Hall as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We move to citizens' right to speak. This would be on... Oh, how did I miss that? Because I don't... Oh, here we go. Police Department.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, I'd like to bring Vince Hodges forward and present him with a Police Department Citizen Award. Vince, if you'll join me up here. So I have a letter here that I'd like to present to Vince. It's for a Citizens Award. So on June 25th, 2015 at 10:21 p.m., a minor traffic accident occurred at the intersection of the West I-70 frontage road south and Kipling Street. An eastbound utility truck struck a westbound motorcycle in the middle of the intersection. Although the traffic accident was relatively minor, the utility truck left the scene fleeing northbound on Kipling. In the process of fleeing, the truck drove over the top of both the motorcycle and the motorcycle rider. The motorcycle was crushed and the rider received severe injuries. Two citizens witnessed the accident and were able to provide a general description of the truck, but were not able to provide a license plate number. Officer Larry Taggart of our traffic team began the investigation by watching security security video from the 4 surrounding businesses without any success. Then he spoke to Vince Hodges, the general manager of the Holiday Inn Express, who pulled up security video from the hotel. The video showed a utility truck matching the description of the one that fled the scene, driving through the hotel parking lot just a few minutes before the incident occurred. Over the course of a week, Mr. Hodges took the time to review his video footage archives. He found video that showed the utility truck arriving at the hotel and then later leaving the hotel just prior to the accident. Mr. Hodges pointed out in the video that the truck drove over the curb twice while leaving the parking lot. Mr. Hodges was able to locate security video of the driver of the truck walking through the hallways of the hotel, leaving the hotel alone and getting into the driver's seat of the truck. He provided Officer Taggart with a video of the truck leaving the Holiday Inn Express and turning east on the west I-70 frontage road south towards Kipling Street minutes before the time of the accident. Finally, Mr. Hodges provided information regarding a company that had rented a room in the motel for several weeks. Using that lead, Officer Taggart was able to locate the utility truck in the video, identify damage on the truck consistent with the traffic accident, and identify the driver of the truck on the date of the accident. Officer Taggart spoke with a suspect driver who admitted to being at the hotel but initially denied driving the truck as he left the hotel. When confronted with the hotel security video, the suspect driver admitted that he had no memory of what happened on the video due to alcohol and marijuana use. The case went to a jury trial, and Mr. Hodges testified in court, documenting his contribution to the case. The suspect was convicted on all counts for his outstanding cooperation and collaboration, which proved to be instrumental in solving this case, and for bringing justice to the victim. Mr. Hodges is being recognized with a Wheat Ridge Police Department Citizen Award. Thank you. I'd also like to present Mr. Hodges with our Police Department Challenge coin. It's a coin that we routinely give to all of our employees so they remember why they work, what their purpose is, and why they work for the Wheat Ridge Police Department. And we also like to give it to citizens as a remembrance for their contribution to making our community safer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hodges. You've gone above and beyond, and our city really appreciates it. You bet. Okay, now I'll move on to citizens' right to speak, and we do have a few people. I don't see the item number, but let's start with Katie Jacobson, followed by Carol Matthews, and then Britta Fisher. Go ahead, please, Katie. Give us your spelling on your last name as well as your street address.
So it's Katie Jacobson, 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 and I'm at 2929 Chase Street. I do have copies of my comments, and they include some pictures on the back. Could I pass those out?
Please, hand them to the clerk, and she'll pass them out.
So good evening. My name is Katie Jacobson. I live at 2929 Chase Street, where I've lived for the last 9 years with my husband Eric and our 2 sons, ages 6 and 2. I'm here tonight to introduce myself and share my disappointment with about a 3-story home that's being built 2 doors down at 2921. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and will keep my comments under 3 minutes. I want to start by saying I'm supportive of our neighborhood's development and excited by the potential for increased property value, but I'm also disappointed that our current neighborhood zoning allows for 35-foot, 3.5-story homes, 20 feet from the street and 5 feet from neighbors in the alley. We've seen that people are building to zoning capacity. My understanding is that the 3-story home going in 2 doors down from me is being built by the same builder of the recent home on 3080 Fenton Street, and there's a picture of that home on the back of my comments. at the top of the page. Current zoning in my neighborhood is allowing for massive homes to be built, towering very closely over neighboring homes. Personally, I love my little home. I've invested a lot of time and money into making our backyard a private space. There's pictures of that as well in the back. This privacy will absolutely be lost, as well as our south-facing living and dining room windows. But even after getting over that, and I'm trying by creating new plans for my backyard garden that include trees, along with searching Zillow for a new home, I'm worried about the changes to our community. Our neighborhood is currently comprised of single-story, 1,000 square foot homes for the most part. And I completely understand wanting to live in more than 1,000 square feet and have a mountain view, but there needs to be a balance between having this and the existing properties. So as I've discussed this with neighbors and friends and coworkers, they all point out how 3-story homes are everywhere in Denver, and we're seeing more of them, of course, on our side of Sheridan here in Wheat Ridge. I understand our opportunity for impacting 2921 has likely passed, but I'm here tonight with the hope of potentially minimizing this from happening to other Wheat Ridge residents, and I'm asking that City Council consider new neighborhood zoning standards, specifically around lowering the maximum height allowance. So in closing, I just want to thank you all for your service to our city and for listening to me. I also specifically want to thank my representative, Monica Duran, and City Manager Patrick Goff for putting on City Council's agenda at your next meeting, the 27th, a discussion on how the city could potentially limit the impacts of these types of developments on neighboring properties. I'm here tonight because I can't attend on the 27th, but I've been sharing information and encouraging neighbors to attend, and we'll be following the work of City Council specific to this moving forward. So thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Katie. Carol Matthews?
I'm Carol Matthews, 3851 Hoyt Street, Wheat Ridge. Last week, I ran out of time for my thoughts on rental control programs, codes enforcement, and negative aspects of ADUs. So I'm back. In 2005, the city hired Winston Associates to do a study to reposition Wheat Ridge. The following were their findings. They seem to be have a real reality to the present and past city council. They started their results with, citizens in Wheat Ridge must follow the first law of holes, which states if you want to get out of the hole you're in, the first thing you do is stop digging. By understanding the data, adopting these lessons, and replacing old habits with new customs, the reason that Wheat Ridge is in this predicament will no longer be present. The summary of their data, what was collected and what it tells us. Owners have been replaced by renters. Houses have become apartments. Good homes have been transferred to residents with less capacity to maintain them to the high standards. Weak renters have replaced strong renters. Greater levels of absentee ownership and poor quality multifamily property management are dealing with weaker rentals. In response, top retail has been replaced by second-tier retail. Second-tier retail has been replaced by third-tier retail. Restaurants and clothing stores have been replaced by gas stations and car dealerships. Chain stores and fast food outlets have replaced local specialty stores. From this data, we know that Wheat Ridge does not attract strong households to the city. In fact, it has been losing strong households for 20 years, and they have been replaced by ever weaker households. The perception of many in the community and the surrounding areas is that Wheat Ridge lags behind nearby cities, and their perception is supported by this data. How do AUDs fit into the recommendations of these studies? By adding additional rental properties into R1 neighborhoods, we only continue to dig our hole deeper and wider. The study found that Arvada and Lakewood revitalized their communities through rental regulations and focusing on attracting new R1 housing that would attract stronger households. Our surrounding communities have established rental housing inspection programs, increased codes enforcement teams in their cities, and brought up slipping standards in order to revitalize their cities and to attract the strong households that are necessary to renew the financial structure of our community and to move forward into becoming a winning city. Throw away the shovels. No ADUs in Wheat Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Britta Fisher.
Good evening. My name is Britta Fisher. That's Fisher, and I'm a resident of District 1 and here representing Local Works this evening. Mayor and our city council and our city leadership and all of our citizens, I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of the Local Works Board, staff, and volunteers, as well as the Ridge 38 Leadership Committee. We had an outstanding event yesterday in Wheat Ridge. I know many of you on the dais attended and had that sense of community that was so felt at the Ridge 38 Criterium and Brewfest. It was outstanding. We had over 6,000 people attend. We doubled yet again our attendance. It was well done by the cyclists. It was a state criterium championship. Amazing racing. Just so exciting. The BRAC president said that one of the men's races, category 4, was the best in that category he's seen in 20 years. So we got out amazing racers. We had great support. It was so fun to walk around the whole race course and see all the front yard parties. It was wonderful to see so many neighbors out and supporting the racers. The racers said that by far this is one of their favorite courses and by far the favorite festival in the whole state. So that's pretty high praise for Wheat Ridge. So thank you, Wheat Ridge, for showing up. We especially want to thank the neighbors who are very patient with the inconveniences of putting on a race in the neighborhood and through our main street, and as well as our businesses. The businesses that were open on Sunday, it was so wonderful to see them full and packed, and art and restaurant patios and everything was going well. So we want to thank everyone for that. To give a little bit of history about the race, I just wanted to remind you that 3 years ago, this race started. And it was to build on that heritage of racing that we had here in Wheat Ridge. And we grew that with 200 racers the first year and over 1,000 people attending. We thought, okay, we've got something going, let's do it better. We doubled yet again to 400 racers and over 2,500 people. And now to a state championship. That's unheard of in just 3 years. So again, another credit to Wheat Ridge. We want to thank in particular the police department, Public Works, and the city staff that have been great partners in all of this. And we also want to thank everyone who made it possible to do a Brewfest. It was a big leap this year, and it paid off in a lot more people attending. We had 12 breweries, and people had a really great time in Wheat Ridge last night. So thank you all.
Thank you, Britta. Those of you who attended, thank you very much for attending. It was really quite a race, quite a spectacle, I want to say, really. I don't have any other citizens, so I think we can move on to our agenda, starting with the consent agenda. Christy Davis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's 3 items on the consent agenda. Item A, motion to approve payment to Independent Roofing Specialists, LLC, in the amount not to exceed $37,125 for replacement of a portion of the City Hall roof. Hopefully it won't leak on us tonight. Item B, motion to approve payment to Aquatic Chemical Solutions, Inc., not to exceed the amount of $58,889 for indoor pool improvements. And item number C, resolution number 25-2016, awarding a contract to Diaz Construction Group in the amount of $37,250 for the purpose of drainage improvements to Hayward Park and amending the fiscal year 2016 open fund budget to reflect the approval of the supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $50,000 for drainage and other repairs to the Hayward Park playground. So there is a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A, B, and C.
May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Pond. Questions, discussion? Please, Mr. Matthews?
I just had one question. When I read through this, it said that, that drainage issue was established in 2002, if you will, when the park or whatever was constructed, and it's become a problem in 2015. I'm just curious what changed.
Well, we're not exactly sure what changed, and the water table has gotten higher. We know this site has a high water table. We're not entirely sure whether the retaining wall in front of the building, when it was built, redirected the water. That's just a guess, but it no longer drains at all. So.
Okay, thank you. I've always been told to ask what caused that, and I can't break the habit.
If there are no further questions, please cast your votes.
Oh, I cleared it.
Okay,
It's
revote.
been a couple weeks. I was gone. I'm sorry.
I don't see any votes. Are we good?
All right, let's try it again. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Move on to item number 2, Councilmember Duran.
Council Bill Number 09-2016, an ordinance amending the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws pertaining to interest on delinquent taxes, exemption of fundraising sales, and licensing requirements for events. Issue. The request is for approval of amendments to the City Code of Laws pertaining to interest on delinquent taxes, exemption of fundraising sales, and licensing requirements for events. The 3 proposed amendments outlined in Attachment 1 are as follows. Amendment 1, interest on delinquent taxes. Section 22-43 of the code currently imposes interest of 1% per month on past due taxes, without limitation or eligibility for waiver. The recommendation is to amend Section 22-43 to cap interest at 18% and to permit abatement, a waiver, of interest by the treasurer or a designee to a floor of 6%. Amendment 2, limited exemption of fundraising sales for exempt organizations. Section 22-58 of the code requires charitable or nonprofit organizations to collect sales tax on all sales that they make, including periodic sales events, to raise funds to support their activities. The recommendation is to amend Section 22-58 to exempt sales and admission charges by charitable or nonprofit organizations up to $5,000 per transaction and a total of $25,000 per calendar year. Amendment 3, reduced licensing requirements for events. Section 11-226 of the code requires a non-resident vendor or event participant to obtain a temporary license for $20 and pay a $100 tax deposit, which offsets tax due when they report their sales to the city and the balance refunded. The recommendation is to amend Section 11-226 to provide certain exemptions for temporary license fees and tax deposits.
Thank you. I do need an ordinance number.
This will be ordinance number 1597.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, which I'm opening right now. Do we have a report from staff or Mr. DiTullio, Treasurer DiTullio?
I thank you. We're here to answer questions. The city attorney and myself, or Kathy Franklin, to answer any questions on the ordinance. This was heard about a month ago, and we've made the changes that you requested, especially the bottom out at 6% that cannot be waived of interest that's been billed to the client. So 6% is the floor, and 18 is the ceiling. We're here for any questions.
And as you'll notice on the second page of the staff report, we caught one error in the first reading version that has been corrected in the versions in your packet, and the motion that's in your packet is set up to include that, so you're good there. I've checked in the back, there's no one signed up, although you should open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone signed up.
Any questions of staff or the treasurer? Ms. Hoppy?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everybody that we had asked this question prior, and I wanted to bring it up again, but when, like in Amendment 1, when the interest on the delinquent tax comes in, there's a group of people, so the city attorney's office is there, the city treasurer is there, and 2 staff members are there. And so when they're negotiating what can be waived, our ultimate goal is to get as much of our past taxes as we can get, and then plus not put them in the hole for having the delinquent taxes. And that waiver happens in that meeting with all of those people. So this is not a one-on-one, kind of negotiation. It happens in a group. So I just wanted to remind everybody of that.
Questions? Mr. Fitzgerald?
I have no problem with any part of this except, well, first of all, I want to congratulate the city attorney on the use of the word emasculatory, which is something amazing.
It's important to keep the language alive,
I really don't like the idea that a publicly elected official in a secret meeting has the power to forgive some of the interest incurred in non-payment of taxes. Not that it has happened, not that I expect it will happen, but nonetheless, it creates the impression of impropriety. And since we want to be open, I really think that it should not be within the treasurer's purview to make the forgiveness. And I do want to stress that these are private meetings because the citizen, the taxpayer, has a right to privacy in this meeting. So the public would never know that this is done. And assuming that that public official then has an election forthcoming, there is the appearance of a quid pro quo. So I reject that particular part and would like to make a motion that we amend the amendment in this case to allow either the tax department and or to allow a representative of the tax department to make the decision about the forgiveness.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
I would suggest that there's a stark difference between the word secret and private. You use those interchangeably. Those are 2 totally different words. There is no such thing as a secret meeting within the city of Wheat Ridge. So I would think that a private meeting relative to the payment of taxes is important so that we can collect taxes in the fiduciary responsibilities that we have in dealing with private enterprise. And that this idea of quid pro quo as it relates to the treasurer in dealing with the penalties and interest, that's making a huge assumption that any elected official would be automatically going to a quid pro quo is just sort of a huge assumption. I would suggest that most elected officials would not take that assumption. So why would we, so if the assumption is not, then why would we automatically take the assumption that there is that quid pro quo there? I don't see that occurring in any way, shape, or form unless you have evidence to suggest otherwise.
Just point of order. Was that a motion or a suggested motion?
That is a motion.
Okay, well then there's no discussion. We're waiting for a second.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. So
That's right.
are
No
you
discussion.
making,
We're waiting for a second.
specifically, you're making an amendment to the,
I'm making an amendment to the amendment.
okay. That allowing a responsibility of someone from the tax, from the staff
A non-elected
a non-elected make any decision as regard to the percentage of changing the fine, basically. All right. Do I have a second for that, is what I'm asking for. And I don't. Okay. Therefore, that has died.
Yeah.
All right. Any further discussion then, or Mr. DiTullio?
Thank you. I wanted to also mention what Mr. Urban had mentioned. These hearings are confidential because of state and federal law, because of tax codes and tax amounts that are collected by businesses, any business. And so there's no secret meeting. It's a confidential meeting in which the city attorney has staff there, the city is there, the city treasurer is there, and maybe another staff person, and the applicant. So really, for there to be some kind of surreptitious thing going on within this public hearing, you're going to have 4 people agreeing to somehow come up with a quid pro quo, and it's really, since 1969, I've never seen any city treasurer do it, and I'm sure there's enough watchdogs out there in this community that would be watching for it. You can't even say something on Facebook nowadays without getting lambasted. So, like I had mentioned before, the information that taxpayers are collecting is confidential, but I will get that report to you of the last 3 years where the hearings have been held and the treasurer and the staff had the hearing after a lot of work gone into the notifying the business owner of the issue, and then the hearing was held. And I can get you those dollar amounts here shortly.
Thank you. Let's see, where are we at now? We're still in discussion.
Right. So just to
Well, we're in
confirm.
questions, actually.
Okay, just to confirm, it's a confidential meeting. Who's in that meeting again, if you could tell me?
In the meetings I've been in, and what I've seen in the past, is the city attorney's staff, which is who works for the city treasurer, a sales tax person, normally Kathy Franklin, and then the applicant or the business owner having the hearing. And that hearing is usually the last resort before that business owner will go to court if he disagrees with the audit that the city performed on his business. So, tell you the truth, it's not really. It wouldn't make much sense to have the audit function and the hearing person the same person. So, if you said that a city staff person was going to be the administrative hearing officer, well, staff is the one that came up with the audit in the first place. So it's really they're ruling on what they've done. So the city treasurer is an unbiased third party with the consulting of the city attorney's office.
Okay, thank you. And we would get a report.
Well, you've asked for that, Councilmember Davis, and I feel there's a requested dollar amounts, whether that was settled or waived or how that was worked. And actually, this ordinance actually cleans up the code where before there really wasn't any guidelines on the waiving of the interest. Now it's capped at 18%, which is good for the community, and it's also the floor of 6% as recommended by Ms. Hoppy and a few others. So I think the floor is actually a good thing where you can't waive it. There's going to be a 6% interest charge on this at the administrative hearing, no matter what. It can't be waived.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Then I believe a motion is in order.
Madam Mayor, it's a public hearing. I didn't see
thank you,
anyone
thank
signed
you,
up,
thank
but you
you.
should still
I
open the
got
hearing
lost
and
in it.
ask.
We've had that. We've had response. I believe I can close the public hearing.
Open the public hearing.
You need to just open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone who wishes to testify. There's no one signed up, but it's always good form, even when that's not the case, to ask if there's anyone that wants to testify.
I thought I opened the.
Did you?
I already
Okay.
did.
Then ask if there's anyone who wants to testify.
Okay. Is there anybody who would like to testify? Or anyone signed up? I'll wait a while. Okay, now I can close the public hearing.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right. Now I'm needing a motion in a second.
I move to approve Council Bill Number 09-2016, an ordinance amending the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws pertaining to interest on delinquent taxes, exemption of fundraising sales, and licensing requirements for events as amended on second reading, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Hoppy. Did you get that? And any further discussion? Mr. Pond.
I just want to thank everyone for the work and including the comments. I don't think, and I do think Councilmember Fitzgerald, indicated that he didn't think anything is going on wrong or might be going on wrong in the future. I do think we have a unique situation here where we've got some elected officials that other people don't have, and I think and I trust that we will continue to be diligent about how we do our business. And if I think we've done a good job to establish a floor and to do some work on this, and I'm sure and would ask that as we move forward, we continue to kind of look at how this is working, and we can maybe revisit this and see how it's going in a year or so.
Any further statements or, please cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Good. Let's move on to item number 4. Councilmember Urban.
3.
3, yeah, I'm missing one. Oh, I turned my page here. Sorry. I had my paperclip in the wrong spot here.
Yeah,
We're on 3. I thought that sounded odd. Thank you.
Okay. I'm happy to introduce Council Bill number 10-2016, an ordinance amending sections 11-218, 11-293, 11-401, 11-404, 11-415, 26-204, and 26-640 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws to adopt regulations governing medical marijuana testing facilities. At issue, Senate Bill 15-260 requires testing of medical marijuana beginning July 1st, 2016. House Bill 16-1064 authorizes local licensing of medical marijuana testing facilities. Wheat Ridge Code of Laws authorizes the licensing of retail marijuana testing facilities but does not address medical marijuana. This proposed council bill defines and authorizes the licensing of medical marijuana testing facilities and the licensing of co-located medical and retail marijuana testing facilities in the city of Wheat Ridge. Is a motion in order?
It is.
I move to approve Council Bill number 10-2016, an ordinance amending sections 11-218, 11-293, 11-401, 11-404, 11-415, 26-204, and 26-640 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws to adopt regulations governing medical marijuana testing facilities on first reading, order it published, public hearing set for Monday, June 27th, 2016 at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
May I have a second?
Second?
Seconded, was that Ms. Hoppy?
No, Duran.
Ms. Durant?
We both leaned forward.
Ms. Durant seconded? I believe we can cast your votes now.
None, I don't think it went through.
Motion carries 7-0.
No, I didn't.
It's broke.
I think that was.
Now let's move to item number 4, Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At issue, the 2016 budget included a contribution to the City of Wheat Ridge Business District in the amount of $45,000 for a matching grant program administered by Wheat Ridge Local Works. A letter of request was received from the Wheat Ridge Business District for this funding. Expenditures over $35,000 requires city approval.
We usually have a member of the WRBD with us, but we have 2 of them up. Yes, Mr.
I was just going to say, Britta Fisher is also here, who Local Works manages this program for the business district, so if you have any questions.
Are there any questions or self-explanatory in our paperwork here?
Mm-hmm.
We do have Ms. Davis.
Well, it's not as much a question, but, thank you for helping to manage the program. And I guess for the folks that perhaps if you didn't see the report, there's some really great investments that our businesses have made. And some of them include, one of them is a grant that the actual business spent $210,952, and they were awarded a grant of $1,000. And they vary in here from $8,000, a cost of $8,000, which is another business cost $6,864, and the grant was $2,000. But I think I think this is a great program. I'm glad to see the ADA grant in there. But I just want to encourage businesses and also let businesses know they're there, and also thank those businesses that have partaken in this opportunity, because they've really made a difference in our community. So I just more or less wanted to praise the program. No questions, really.
No questions, okay. Any other discussion, or, well, go ahead and do the motion, and then we can do that.
I move to approve a contribution to the Wheaters Business District in the amount of $45,000 for the matching grant program.
Second.
Made and seconded, any discussion? No?
Jenny Soppy.
Denise.
Any further questions or discussion? Doesn't look like it. Please go ahead and cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, that really concludes our May business meeting. We do have city managers' matters. And
Thank you, Mayor. Just have a few items this evening. I just want to continue reminding citizens, residents, visitors to steer away of the Clear Creek. We are still having some very high waters. The most recent readings we received, which are being monitored at a site in Golden, the cubic feet per second continues to rise, as well as the height of the creek. So there's no, we're getting rain tonight. So please stay away from the Clear Creek. Yes.
So I saw on 9 News, was it 9 News or 7 News? One of the news programs, that they actually interviewed somebody in Wheat Ridge. And it was on one of the news programs. And they also showed kids inner tubing down the creek. Is there any kind of code enforcement or anybody that are, I mean, these kids, they were just on inner tubes. I mean, if one of them flipped, and they were kids. Is there anything that we're doing in that area?
Well, we don't regulate that, and I believe we can't. We've tried in the past, but we just, again, try to encourage people to stay away from the creek during be smart, stay away from the creek during these high periods, especially around the Kipling Bridge, because the water is so high. If you get swept under the bridge, you may lose some appendages on the way. So sorry to be graphic, but it's dangerous. So it's just people need to stay away until the water goes back down.
Madam Mayor. Yeah. And to the city manager's point, I think it's okay in this situation to be graphic, to be outspoken. If you see someone going near the creek, to speak up, say something, keep people away from there. And if you see kids or other people near the creek, don't be afraid to speak up and say, stay away from there, because for some people that may be what is necessary to keep them alive. And as much as people should, mind their own safety, it does take all of us to kind of keep people aware of, stay out of the water, and really, this is not a good time to be in the water.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Also, I just want to announce that the city, once again, has won the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from the Government Finance Officers Association. We just received an announcement for that for the 2015 budget, so I want to congratulate Heather and her staff for the hard work and great work on that. Also, we just got some updates from RTD. They're going to be testing the commuter rail along our stretch of the rail here very soon. They're shooting for about July 3rd. So keep an eye on the city's website. We'll get more information out when we get a specific date, but they're going to be testing crossings and the tracks. So you'll see some commuter rail cars here in Wheat Ridge soon. That's all I have.
So stay out of the water and keep off the track?
Yes, that too. Thank you.
Okay. Attorneys' matters?
Nothing tonight, thanks.
I'm going to start with this elected officials matters. Mr. DiTullio, did you have something for us?
Yes, thank you. On the dais, I passed out a memo and a resolution that's been approved by the Treasurer's Office on June 8th. I just wanted to refer that to you. If you don't mind, I'll just read it real quick so the public also hears what's going on with the sales tax collections. This is a memo dated June 8th, 2016. City Treasurer Jerry DiTullio signed a resolution effective July 15th, 2016, calling for rounding of amounts to the nearest dollar on all tax returns. Regulation A 542 will become effective on July 15th, 2016. in order to allow time to ensure that forms, instructions, and web tools are updated and consistent. How it works, so any business submitting sales tax or use tax, for an amount that ends in 0.5 or higher, you will round up to the next dollar. $99.50 becomes $100. For an amount that ends in 0.49 or less, you will round down to the previous dollar. $99.49 becomes $99. This resolution was created in response to feedback from taxpayers seeking to speed up and simplify the online filing. If tax returns are filed without rounding dollar amounts, the software will apply rounding during input. And then attached is the resolution that I signed last week. Just wanted to see if you had any questions on that.
Thank you. Questions? Okay.
I only have one more thing. This is the report that you asked for about the last 3 years for sales tax audits. I can
The
just,
sales tax.
audits, hearings.
Okay.
I'm gonna come up and pass them.
Let's go on with other elected officials' matters. I'm going to start with the city clerk since I have a tendency to.
Yes, just real quickly, wanted to say again that you should have your primary ballot should have come in the mail if you are registered with one of the major parties. We have, if you are registered and didn't get your ballot, call the county clerk's office. Don't call here, because we don't distribute those. That comes from the county. And if you would rather not mail your ballot, we have a drop box in the entryway, entry lane of City Hall, and there's also a ballot box in the City Hall lobby that you can put your ballots there. And then I wanted to do one more thing. I haven't heard much about it in the city, but for government-wise or council-wise or anything, but I wanted to just make note of the passing of a real icon of our city. Ray Valenti passed away May 6th at age 91. He owned and operated Mark's Restaurant for 44 years, and Valenti's Restaurant and Mark's Restaurant for 18 years. He was a very generous man. He provided food for funerals and never took pay for it. He was quite a talker. He was a fun, happy, jokey man with a big booming voice, and you would see him driving around Wheat Ridge in his maroon El Camino. But he was a good man, and really kind of not a governmental pillar, but a community pillar, and he will be missed. And I just wanted to express my condolences to the family on behalf of the city, and just remind you of what a good guy he was, and he was such a generous man. Wouldn't turn anybody away, and never met somebody who wasn't his friend. So he'll be missed. That's all. Thank you.
I'm saddened to hear that. He was a tremendous guy. He really was. It was just a joy to go into the restaurant. He's always there to greet you. And so that's very sad. Which reminds me, of course, the Orlando situation, and we haven't paid them any tribute at all, which is a pretty unbelievably horrible killing spree. I just couldn't believe that it was so horrible to kill and maim that many people right here in our country. And I'm sure we've all felt a lot of sadness and compassion for those families. Okay, let's move on to the rest of our reports. Dick, would you like to start tonight?
Larry.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to report that my name is Larry.
I'll get that. Give me that.
Dick Matthews is my other brother.
Yeah, I know.
With another mother. Not tonight, thank you.
Nothing tonight.
I just have one thing.
What's your name, please?
Kent Davis.
Kent Davis.
So I will be missing the 27th, the meeting on the 27th. But I know you guys will be speaking about the issue that Ms. Jacobson brought up, and I would strongly encourage that we do look at that. I know that there have been some unintended consequences of some of the building developments with these larger buildings, especially next to, smaller bungalow type of homes. So I hope we do look at it. Again, I think, she's being respectful, understanding that, this is something that as a city we have to face, but if we could do it in a manner that maybe the setbacks are a little bit different, if something's going to go as high as 35 feet and those types of things, that I would support that consideration, as I won't be here on the June 27th meeting. And thank you for all the volunteers and staff that worked on yesterday's event. It was actually a lot of fun. Actually, I think we had probably 15 of my neighbors just in our block go down there, and it was a lot of fun. So thanks for the fun event.
Mr. Pond.
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Urban?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just want to let everybody know that I will not be at the study session next Monday night. I'll be in Washington, D.C., attending the Federal Advisory Committee for the Office of Housing Counseling. So apologize for my absence, but it is an important meeting that I must attend, so won't be here. Thank you.
Ms. Hoppy?
Yes. I'm very excited to say that, a little bit of background first. So Family Tree has been in our community for a very long time, and they are celebrating their 40th year this year. And they had their celebration of achievement, where they celebrate people who have graduated through their programs and have become safe and strong and self-reliant. And this time, our police department donated a live auction of a use of force shooting simulator training for 6 people, and it went for $1,500. And so I just would really like to say thank you very much to our police department for donating that. It was very popular in the live auction. So.
And Ms. Duran, do you have something?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, I think then we can close this meeting, and we can adjourn to the study session. Do we need a break, or are we ready? Can we go forward? Just go forward?
Second.
Oh, thank you for that reminder. So we're going to move on to the study session, which will be on our DIRT task force. When Janella's got all the wheels running the right direction.
That's a good suggestion.
My dad's name is Larry. That's what I'm going to do.
5 minutes.
Do you want 5 minutes? Okay. All right, let's do it. 5 minutes. And I'm timing you. study session of May or June 13th. And we're going to start with, as usual, with public comment. And I do have one person signed up here. Vivian Voss.
Thank you. Vivian Voss, 6920 West 47th Place. I, as a citizen, not as a task force member, attended each of the DIRT task force meetings. There were 4 of them, I believe. And I just wanted to say it was so informative. It was so educational. The force was presented with several department head information on how the city worked, what their issues were, what they had to deal with. And I would just encourage anybody to go to these open meetings. The next task force meeting, I believe, is the outside agency. And I would just encourage you all to go and sit in and learn and find out what's really happening in the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Which one of you is going to speak first? Wait, all 3 hands went up.
Well, just real quick, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. On behalf of Carly Lorenz, who is unfortunately stuck in St. Louis, Missouri, so she couldn't be here this evening. She was the staff liaison to the DIRT task force. So she worked closely with Ann and Ruth. So we have Ruth Baranowski, who's with us this evening, who served as chair of the DIRT task force, along with Ann Brinkman, a member of the DIRT task force. All of the information is included in your packet, and they're here this evening to present their prioritization, which they were tasked with several weeks ago.
Okay. Ruth Baranowski.
Hello, Mayor and City Council.
You're the chairman, weren't you?
I am the chairman of the task force, and the task force was made up of the 8 citizens, 2 per district, Charlie Myers and Ann Brinkman from District 1, Jesse James and Terry Urbanowski from District 2, Mike Griffith and Tony Pestanoto, who I never called by his last name, from District 3, and Marty Killerin and myself from District 4. Ann Brinkman participated in the 2007 task force, which provided some continuity from the past effort and was incredibly helpful. This year's task force adopted the original 8 criteria used to prioritize in 2007, and then agreed to add 1 more: environmental sustainability. The task force met 6 times in all. Most meetings were comprised of staff presentation and discussion between the task force on prioritization of the projects. In your packets, you would have found the final prioritization across all 7 categories: roadway and streetscape, parks, trails, and recreation, IT infrastructure, city facility improvements, land banking, power line undergrounding, and storm sewers. Also included in your packet are the group's comments about an individual project or a category of projects. And then after the comments, you will find 2 final recommendations from this year's task force for future DIRT task forces. We hope you will agree with our suggestion, and Ann and I are here to answer any questions.
I'm going to assume council has an opportunity to look through this. It's a pretty large amount of information. Are there questions that you'd like to ask or further elaboration on how they came to these conclusions? It was a system of numerical.
Yes. Where? Yeah. As I recall from the study session, because they were kind of existing projects, we had thought that the 38th Avenue project and the Wadsworth project would be exempted from being on the DIRT project.
I think we discussed that, but decided that they needed to be in there since they were so large and encumbered so much revenue. Was that correct?
My understanding is the projects that are on the list are of strategic importance to the city, one way or the other. So we had questioned why a couple of them, and there's some notes in there, like on the ADA, why that was on there, when that would seem to be kind of by rote that you would do that as part of a project. But because it's strategic, we understand that some of those, as well as 38th, as well as some others, would be on there. Just to, if nothing else, for the citizens to understand the complexity of it and the scope of it.
More questions, or Ms. Durant?
That was my understanding also when we spoke, that 38th Avenue wouldn't be on there. That's why we had wanted to kind of clean up, the list, prioritize it. That was my understanding also.
Well, it wasn't just 38th Avenue, though. It was like also Wadsworth, and there were
Well, there was a few others,
And so-
yes.
But at the end of the discussion that we had, from what I remember, at the end of the discussion we had decided to leave them in there as they are on the list but haven't been yet completed. And as with like 32nd Avenue, like only part of it had been completed, but we still left it in there for them to decide if the remainder of it was still important. So that's what I remember from our discussion.
Okay.
That was my
I don't
understanding
recall
too.
the
We
consensus.
definitely had discussions, that there were definitely such discussions, but we felt in the end it was to maintain the integrity of the process, that this group, their mission was to reevaluate the 2007 list, and we didn't want to make changes to that list as at a staff level. The only thing that staff did was we provided a list of 4 or 5 new projects we felt were maybe some new priorities that they should also consider.
Any other questions or clarification needed? Ms. Davis?
So I'll just, that was my recollection as well, and I think a lot of it was also around funding, that especially like for Wadsworth, that the city has to come up with at least 7 million, maybe 14 million if they don't get the grants. And so that is something that as a city, it's good that we're aware of that, because we also don't want to lose a $25 million grant from CDOT because we can't come up with our matching funds. So I think that was part of the discussion too, was about the funding.
Mr. Pond?
I'm just kind of reviewing the notes, the comments under the prioritization. A couple of questions just to elaborate perhaps. On Anderson Prospect Recreation Center, the notes talk about the preference to have it split apart, and if so, the recreation center improvements, I suppose, would have been a higher priority. And I'm assuming that you mean that alone may have moved it up the list, and I guess that's a
Yes.
question. Do you have any idea of how far up the list, or?
I don't. Understanding from staff in the staff presentation that it's almost like a MASH TV show, that one was dependent on another, dependent on another, dependent on another, and it's sort of just stair-stepped. And so that's why they presented them together. There was obviously more interest in some than others, and so they said that if the rec center had been separate, it would have ranked higher. But as a whole, I mean, it's still number 5.
Yeah, no complaining, just a question. I guess and just to elaborate on what you're saying, I assume it's and this is probably a staff question, but it's concerned to the interconnectivity of programs that are utilized across these different facilities.
Actually, it was the cost. It was actually the cost that was why people wanted it separated.
No, but I'm saying the reason why they're together is
together.
in fact because of programming.
Yeah, any major expansion of the rec center to increase programming and space would have to move out north, and the soccer field that's there, which is used very heavily for soccer tournaments and actual play, not just practice, would have to be relocated. So that's kind of the domino effect, and we don't have a lot of space for a new soccer field, so we'd have to move some stuff potentially at Anderson Field. So that was the whole domino effect, yes.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Urban?
Thank you. As we look at land banking on the Kipling corridor, can you talk about how the task force came to find that as a top priority and what led to that being a priority?
So first of all, Ruth was a big proponent of it. I will tell you that since she's in District 4, she sees the value of and the increased productivity, the increased value of the property. We were swayed primarily by the percentage of time that the police has spent there, over 25% going to 30% just with the hotels in that area. So the idea was that if that property along Kipling were land banked and it was starting to gentrify and started to get better, and they started looking at the other properties on the other side that may not be land banked but could improve because of the properties on one side. We saw that as a win-win for all of District 4.
And the city as a whole, just because it would cut down on costs from the police. It would just be good for the whole city, but for District 4 too.
And that's one of the few areas that you can grab a large swath of property. So we had 2 land banking opportunities presented to us. This, by far, from the entire task force, it ranked much higher than the other one.
Just an
Than the other
absolute potential.
Than the other land banking, yeah.
Larry?
On that same topic, did the Kipling intersection with I-70 ever come up?
It did, but that intersection was told to us by staff that it wouldn't be a possibility until CDOT got its act together. And funding came.
Yeah.
But it was discussed, but it was not a project.
Okay.
Mr. N?
I'm glad to see the goal line is on here. Can you tell me your discussions, ideas that you may have had?
I used the word inevitable a lot in some of these, especially on Wadsworth and the goal line. So we recognize that Arvada may have a jump on us. We recognize that this is a great opportunity for the city. As being former planning commission, I'm a big proponent of TOD, transit-oriented development, and I work down off of County Line and Dry Creek right there, and I see the growth and I see the real benefit to the citizens. And so we thought that this was an area that the city could take a jump on and share with Arvada and not lose out. So that's the key reason why that one floated right to the top. And that was a consensus by everybody. In some other ones, and we note that, sometimes it was in the middle or top or bottom, but this one was right up there at the top.
Yeah, I agree. This is and could be a great opportunity for Wheat Ridge to do something jointly with Arvada up there and make it really
good,
special, unique in many ways. So.
And we should mention Charlie Myers. We asked him to go off and videotape because not everybody was able to to travel around to all these sites. And so he got on his bike and he had his bike helmet and his camera on, so he was able to show us the improvements that were already there and then the opportunities that were there. So that was a nice touch, especially since he was on a bike.
Because it's not just opportunities with commercial or that, it also is opportunity for community building by increasing art along the rail and those kind of things. Everybody agreed it was a fantastic.
The multimodal aspect in there, I have seen it firsthand.
I really agree with you and could get very excited about the Gold Line. When you were discussing it, were you thinking in terms of the city should pursue any opportunities that come along, or more dedicated to creating the opportunities?
Both. Dedicated to creating the opportunities and pursuing any beneficial opportunities that people might come say, hey, I'd like to do this, but not just any. Let's not.
So from my standpoint,
based on a core plan.
Yes, based on a core plan.
Okay. So smart zoning. Let's just say that.
Ms. Davis.
So I have thank you guys for your work, by the way. I have a quick question regarding Clear Creek Crossing, because when I was reading the notes, it sounds like there was, some mixed discussion there. And it was interesting because, when I hear land bank, I also think, okay, we've already got a bank of land right there, and we just need the infrastructure to be built. What were folks' thoughts of that? Was it the cost that some people weighted it higher, lower? I'm just curious.
I would say it was sort of the unknown. So we didn't have a lot of information on it. We saw the layout of the area. We understand that there's some long-term, CDOT has some long-term ideas. We had Steve Wynn was there, and he explained all the how the on-ramps and exit ramps would have to move, et cetera. So there was a lot going on there.
How certain projects, when it was first presented, it was one fell big swoop, and now there are possibilities of doing it in stages, and it just was very up there in the air. It just
hard to get a hold of.
It was hard to get a hold of, and it fell where it fell.
And then there were, somebody said there's a rumor that the Cabela's is coming back. So there was so much unknown that we saw the value of it, but we also saw all the infrastructure costs. And so some people are like, let's focus on what we have and let this kind of simmer, and they will come. And then others were like, let's promote it because it is a key area of the city. So that's why some are at the top, some are at the bottom, and it kind of averaged out in the middle.
I think Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Just call me Larry.
His name is.
Yeah, I'll answer to Fitzgibbons or Fitzpatrick, either one. I want to thank the task force. I watched some of your meetings. I did see the helmet cam tour of the Gold Line. Very impressive. And I'd like to thank you for giving in on the Excel, since I know you have an aversion to that. I really like having the total scores here, and also want to tell you that these notes are really valuable, and I appreciate the work that everybody did, and I was very impressed with how hard everybody was working on that.
Can I make one mention? Ruth had to chide me a couple times because I kept saying it over and over again. When I get stuck on something, I'll say it over and over. I wanted there to be continuity for the next task force, so I was keenly interested in people not artificially changing their score to move it up or down, because the next task force would look at a 1 or a 0 and try to figure out why that person had seen it as a 1 or a 0, whereas that person might have just been trying to lower the ranking of it overall. So the scores you see are the scores that really people believed where the projects were. They weren't artificially lowered or raised just to move it in the ranking, okay?
Yeah, thanks for telling us that.
Yeah, that was important. Just so the next time, if the next city council and the next task force, when they look at the numbers and they're like, okay, and you can trust the numbers effectively. And that was a big conversation. If you watch the recordings, there was round and round about how we score this, and I think it was Mike or Marty said, trust the numbers, go with the numbers. And we're like, okay, we'll go with the numbers.
But then adding the comments is where we got with our comments. We trusted the ranking. The ranking is where we believe that they should be. We just had to add the comments for clarity for you.
Okay, and the comments are appreciated. Mr. Pond would like to speak.
Well, just to stay on that topic, for your recommendations, what, other than what you've written here and that you think it should be recycled and we should do it again in 4 years, anything the way we did it that we should do again, or should we take more time? Obviously we did it under some constraints. In this case, if we were to plan out 4 years, how would you do it differently?
Planning it so it's more of the citizens have maybe a little bit longer to maybe read up on by themselves, to get a little bit to know some of the projects, to have it planned with, as we recommended, having someone or two people from the previous task force to help with the process. Having Ann it smoothed things out surprisingly. It made it so much easier to do things. So doing that, but if the city council is going to continuously use this kind of list, it would be very important to set it up so that the staff has time to get the projects in order, because information could be really expedited if they had more time, if they knew that in 4 years or, in a year they have to get some of these projects. It also gives, us a clearer picture of, well, okay, it's been 4 years, where are we on these lists?
So if they know it's coming in 4 years, then they know that they have to maintain, and if that project is not going to be done in the next 4 years for whatever reason, they can maintain and they can continually update versus in a rush and go dust it off and get ready to present it. I mean, you can have the numbers there, you can have everything there to represent that project going forward if you have a continual, because I might have been somewhat helpful, but 7 years is kind of a long time for a 55-year-old. So if you have it every 4 years, and then you have some continuum on the city council too, where I'm not sure there was any for 7 years ago. So, I mean, that's good as well as for citizens as well. And some more time. We'd love a little bit more time. I mean,
we had to have 6 meetings, and we were supposed to present last Monday, and we needed that extra meeting.
We needed that extra meeting, yeah.
Mr. Urbans.
Thank you. With respect to the Gold Line and the Ward Road, looking at the Urban Land Institute's technical advisory panel that they had gone through, was there any discussion around the recommendations that came out of that panel, or any of the information relative to the information that they had discussed, or any particular?
I know about it, but it wasn't discussed. It was based on the presentation, which I believe you might have seen the staff presentation and PowerPoint presentation, and then I visited the area. Charlie showed the area on his video cam, and then some people had ridden their bikes up there, et cetera, and I walk around up there. So
as a specific project, though, it isn't necessarily something that is quantifiable, but it's a priority area that the task force has defined as to focus on.
Exactly.
So we would take those recommendations from this task force, take the recommendations from that TAP report from ULI, and use those in concert, then come up with something to move forward.
They're the experts. You're getting citizens' opinion here, right?
Yes, citizens' opinion.
And then you should go with the experts of the Land Institute, and then obviously your partner city to the north.
Sure.
And get as much as you can.
Which I think was the goal, is in some respect is to what's important to the citizens. That's what we're looking for. Were you not done, Mr. Urban?
Yeah, sorry. One other thing, just as it relates to the city of Arvada as an example, was there any discussion relative to other partners within other projects and how that related to priorities, whether or not there were, how those partnerships weighted the priority of those projects, and how that?
I asked a question, and Heather kind of rolled her eyes when I said, can you share some of the software with other cities, and have some sort of Chinese wall? So, just a sharing of resource, and that wasn't available. I don't think we brought up.
Well, one of the other things is a lot of these projects are within our city, so there's not much. The stuff on the edge, yeah, you could probably combine with the Gold Line. You could probably work with Arvada, possibly. Even Clear Creek Crossing, if you really wanted to, you could probably work with Golden, but a lot of the stuff was centralized in the middle of Wheat Ridge. There aren't that many options for outside city influence, although someone did mention, was it Mike?
So we recognize the dependency on things like CDOT.
Sure, that's what I'm considering.
Yeah, we recognize
not
the
other
dependency.
municipalities, but other political entities, other.
Absolutely. So we recognized especially if staff raised it and said, so like, let me give you the Clear Creek Trail connections, and I realized that I kind of slaughtered a sentence in this thing. But we said the majority of this multi-pronged project is not feasible until CDOT replaces the Kipling Bridge. So while we recognize that, and city staff actually lowered it in their presentation, going by the criteria alone, it's still ranked up there because we saw it as a value. But we also recognize that there's viable access now, and so we can use the access. Not everybody, I cross at Kipling, I don't go under the bridge, but you can't right now because it's all flooded. So, last I heard, theoretical access, yeah.
I am sure we're all very grateful for the amount of time that you spent on this, and it sounds like that you enjoyed it as well.
It was far less than the first task force. The first task force, they had to munch through, they had to, the storming, norming type of trying to figure out all the criteria and decide on the criteria. We had a leg up.
Yeah,
we had the criteria
in place, and it was useful, and we did keep all the criteria. We just added to it.
And then it was helpful to staff because they did dust off their old presentations, and they were able to update them, and so that was good. So that's why we could do it in 6 meetings versus months on the last one.
I have one final question. That's okay.
Mr. Larry Matthews.
Thank you. You kind of brought up the goal line, which is the gold line, which is not football, it's the gold line, which is kind of a conceptual idea in a way because we really don't have a specific project up there. Did, at any point in time, the old the Cabela site come into play? Was that ever discussed at all by the Dirt Task Force?
As far as conceptual or what to do with the property?
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's out there waiting to be developed, and I think we may have something going on there, but did it just come up as a potential?
That's the Clear Creek crossing.
Well,
yeah, I know.
I mean, did anyone
We did
present?
not go into.
I mean, did you ever have a chance to look at specifics or partial specifics on where it's at and what might be needed?
No.
And did anyone for all these ever get into potential costs at all?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Yep, we definitely went into potential costs.
For all of them, in fact, and especially for the public works. We received the budget, we saw the line items per budget, and we saw which parts had been completed, which ones had not. And then Steve Wynn described.
I know we've got some investment at Clear Creek.
Yep.
And I don't know if we have too much other than Tabor Street investment at Gold Line, and that's what I was trying to figure out if you had kind of an idea of what might be required for those two sites.
Yeah, we have an idea of what would be required for preparing that site for development. We did definitely get that, but there was no plan in place. There was potential, but we would have to work with CDOT in some of the areas, and we would have to work with other places. There wasn't clear development of the site. We mostly talked about the roads.
And I was just curious why it was ranked a little lower than the Gold Line, because those are our two major development sites left in the city.
So the Gold Line, I think it took priority because it's here now. So yes, Clear Creek Crossing is there, but there's a lot to be done before it becomes a reality versus the trains are running. They're in practice right now, and investors and developers are going to start immediately looking at that
And
property.
pardon me for using the term Cabela's. It's just,
No.
I'm not sure people remember Cabela's.
Oh,
I'm
no.
not sure they recognize.
We're there.
Yeah.
The whole
Crossing.
the whole group understood, and the Cabela's link, and they know the property.
No, I mean just the people listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Gold Line we saw as here, now, immediate.
Yeah.
There's already movement happening on the Gold Line by Arvada, so it's more important because it's happening, whereas, like Ann said, Clear Creek is either inevitable, likes that word a lot.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate all your hard work.
Is that rain?
You kind of talked about the fact that you sort of ballparked the money aspect of this. Is there anything that you sort of got the sense that it wasn't worth the money?
Sure, I'll jump on that one.
Let you do that one.
So if you notice, I think I made the, I don't think anything's not worth the money. It's how you prioritize. So let me give you an idea how we were presenting this. The power line undergrounding, we recognize that it might be valuable if it's partnered with or tied with another project. Steve explained the cost involved in power line undergrounding and the impacts to it, especially to properties on either side, especially if you're impacting sewer or water, et cetera, et cetera. And it's more aesthetic than it is anything else. So in that sense, we didn't say it wasn't worth it, but we said
It's a lower priority.
it's a lower priority from everything else. There were some discussion about 38th Avenue streetscaping. There were some clear beliefs that it wasn't worth it, that it had been tried for 8 or 10 years, and what was there wasn't working. So that was one voice there, or two. What else?
And that was on cost, too.
That was on cost. I have to remember to switch to the other page because there's 2 pages. I don't think there was anything that really wasn't, I mean, the land banking, the second land banking, it's way at the bottom. We saw the first land banking if you have to prioritize. So nothing, we have to trust, I have always trusted staff to present what they feel are strategic for the city. If they can't stand behind what they've presented, then it's a waste for us to review. So we trusted them that they presented 23 items, and we sorted those 23 items.
And one of the things was how we pay for it, how much it costs, we did not use as criteria.
Yeah.
We did not take that into effect. We saw the costs, but we did not use that as a criteria to rank the projects because that wasn't given to us as a job, as a task force, to look at the cost and how to pay for it. That's more along the staff and your jobs.
So if you look at the criteria seriously, if you do look at the criteria, cost is not a criteria. But good question.
That's very interesting.
Just my last question was related to any sticking points or points of contention within the task force where there were conflicts amongst the task force members on any particular priority, and where was that, and then how was that resolved?
I think we had any sticking
No,
points.
we didn't really have any what you would call sticking points or contention. We had people bring up their views on different projects. We discussed them, and we came together as a group to agree. A few people made mention of certain projects and how they didn't like where they ranked. We discussed it, but nothing was really a sticking point.
And if there was that kind of comment, I did include it in here.
Mhm.
So, for example, somebody didn't agree that the men's baseball fields would disappear. We included it in there. And when I said there was mixed opinion on 38th Avenue streetscape, I included it in there. So if there was a mixed opinion, or it's in here. We didn't hide anything.
That's good.
Yeah.
First off, thanks so much, you guys, for all the time and for being able to get it done quickly and being able to make those changes into your schedule. What I would also like to say is that I appreciate that cost was not a part of the priorities, because that's kind of like you would have to be given a budget for you to be able to prioritize by cost, and you weren't given a budget. So I'm glad that it wasn't that way. My question is actually for staff. Patrick, what do you feel is the next step? I mean, I would like to see some of the projected numbers that they were presented on these items, and I know that we have some of them, but they're old numbers, And so I'd like to see kind of some of the changes, and especially with the new ones. And so kind of what is your guys' plan with this information?
Yeah, I think good question. We should have another study session with council on the results of the task force and discuss funding options and get direction from city council on how you'd potentially like to move forward. If you want to, do some type of 10, 15, 20-year planning on these projects and figure out how we can fund them.
Sounds like a council retreat.
Can I raise another point here? So as you look at the criteria, and if you listen to the recordings, you'll hear me say this multiple times, the criteria are not focused on, let's say, non-sexy internal city type projects. They are more for economic benefit, citizens benefit, et cetera. So I'll give a good example. The IT asset management financial system, it's ranked at number 15. I was pushing for an other criteria or an other category because it's only 200 grand and it would really benefit the city. It would make it more efficient. It would make it more effective. It hits a bunch of points that I would see, but it doesn't hit the criteria. So keep that in mind when you're looking through this list, and staff knows this too. And this is the case where we did not want to artificially raise the numbers because it doesn't make sense to say that the asset management system would enhance accessibility to a 10. I mean, you would not trust the numbers if you saw that, right? So it's sitting where it sits based on the score we gave it. But on some of these, it just makes sense to move forward on it because in relative terms, it's a small investment for a large return. So that's that other kind of other.
It wasn't just Anne. We both agreed on the other category. It was not added, but we both agreed on it. And we both, actually the majority of the task force did agree that these final projects that weren't sexy were very important. They just didn't hit all the criteria. And to move them up on the project would have been cheating.
And hence the reason for the comments. That's what drove the comments, so that you see that we see the benefit of it. It's just the criteria just didn't hit it.
So in any of these, the investment may or may not reflect the return.
Yes.
Okay, that's a very good point. Mr. Pond.
Well, I think just to maybe wrap up on the question and dialogue about next steps, we've had, I believe, 2 of our study sessions regarding economic sustainability, et cetera, revenue opportunities, and I think we had a third that was potentially slated. So is this an opportunity to kind of fill that third slot, to continue that conversation and vet out a couple of these things as we move forward?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Matthews.
Yeah, just one other question out of curiosity. Did you start out at all having a chance to review past projects? I know we had ones that were on the old dirt list, and then at one time in the study session, we brought up additional projects that were completed.
Yes.
And that help you as far as getting a sense of what can be accomplished in a certain time frame?
It actually, you and I don't know each other, but I'm a realist. If you looked at that list from 2007, you'll notice that the staff didn't start at the top and start completing. They hit where they could to make the biggest benefit. So my reality is that we've hard scored these, we've hard ranked these, but I think city council staff, grant writers will try to hit where they can to score these.
That was kind of around what I was saying, but I was just curious because we had the 2007
and we
dirt
did,
list.
we saw that, and that's how we could see
but there was another list of projects that we went over we introduced at the study session that weren't on the 2007 dirt list. And did that ever come up so that you could see what, for instance, like the park on 44th, I don't think was on the old dirt list.
Yes.
So you could get a feeling of what the city's actually been able to
Yes.
accomplish since.
We
in the update.
definitely, we saw what the city was able to accomplish, and there was some feeling that they could have accomplished more, that 7 years was too long for some of these projects, like some of the gutter and drainage. Why wasn't it moved to a different fund so that those projects could have moved forward? That some of those things came up because we looked at the rest of the projects and what had been funded. But we understand that grants come, grants go. We understood that. We looked at that, and we took the history of what happened and we applied it to this list. And like Ann said, this is what we want to have happen in this order, preferably, but where the grants happen is how it's going to happen.
And
Did that
with your
answer your
gui- and with
question?
your guidance.
Not quite, but that's fine. I
The
mean, I
answer
really-
is, we saw the list.
I really-
We saw everything that you instructed staff to show us.
Okay.
And we
Like-
did take
like
it.
the park on 44th was on there?
Yes.
So, okay, that's all because it just would give you an idea of scope of what
Yeah.
can be done.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Are we good? I believe so.
Again, we highly recommend that you consider our other two recommendations. It's helpful to have somebody on there from the past task
forward.
force. And then we recommend it more often. 4 years, it seemed like there'd be carryover. You'd have some representation from city council and a voice that could say, yeah, I was there and these are the decisions we made.
And possibility of moving on with some project by 4 years.
And I appreciated the two that you added, economic as well as environmental sustainability. I thought that was great additions as far as the criteria is concerned.
Yeah, we added we augmented facilitates economic expansion, and we added economic sustainability, and then we just did environmental sustainability. Because we felt that if you had two economic, it would weigh it more than other factors.
And this way, it just clarified what a project could do on the economic stance.
All right.
He was making sausage.
I think you did a great job, and we really, really appreciate that you took your time to do that for your city.
Yes, thank you.
I believe, I don't know that we have anything else, and so I believe we're done for the evening. The meeting is adjourned.
Just,
Oops, sorry. Wait, take it back.
Just to your earlier comment, our prayers and thoughts are with the families and victims in Orlando. And as we began the meeting tonight, we ended the Pledge of Allegiance with indivisible and liberty and justice for all. And I think that that's something that needs to be understood, that's our Pledge of Allegiance. And just thinking that that's where we come from and that's what we do. And want to just extend our thoughts and prayers to those victims. And
Thank you, Jeff.
thank you.
Anyone else want to say anything about Orlando? Okay. See you all in a week.